They don't always say it out loud, but they feel it the moment you step into the room. The energy changes, conversations soften, or suddenly stop. Eyes glance up, then away. There is a pause that can't be explained, only sensed. It isn't intimidation in the way the world defines it, and it isn't ego on your part. It's recognition. Something in them registers that your presence is not casual, not light, not something to be handled without awareness. You don't announce yourself, yet the atmosphere rearranges itself around you. That is not coincidence, that is weight. Your presence carries spiritual consequence because you carry more than personality or charisma. You carry alignment. You carry truth that has been forged in places few ever see. And truth, when it enters a space, demands a response. Some feel drawn in, steadied by it, as if they can finally breathe. Others feel exposed, unsettled, unsure of themselves in ways they can't name. That reaction isn't about you trying to prove anything. It's about what your presence awakens. Light does not argue with darkness. It simply reveals it. And revelation always comes with consequence. You never had to demand respect, and you never had to raise your voice to claim authority. Respect was already there, waiting to surface, buried under jealousy, hidden beneath nervous smiles, disguised as indifference or dismissal. But when people mishandle what is sacred, they learn quickly that access has a cost. Standing near you requires honesty. Proximity to you invites self-examination, and not everyone is prepared to face who they really are when the masks fall away. So the respect that shows up now didn't come from fear of you. It came from the realization of what happens when they fail to honor what God has marked. Scripture puts language to this reality plainly. Touch not my anointed, and do my prophets no harm. Psalm 105-15. This is not about arrogance or superiority. It is about divine order. When God sets something apart, it carries protection. When He places weight on a life, that life is no longer common. And those who approach it casually eventually feel the consequences, not by your hand, but by God's justice. And here is the truth you may already sense deep within you. The shift has already happened. You are no longer someone they can overlook, mishandle, or take lightly. The season where your presence was misunderstood is closing. What remains now is clarity. Your silence speaks. Your presence testifies. And from this point forward, being near you is not a right, it is a privilege. What many people mistake for your withdrawal is actually the moment God steps forward on your behalf. This is where the narrative shifts from human reaction to divine order, from emotion to accountability. What unfolds next is not revenge, because revenge requires effort, intention, and retaliation. God's justice requires none of that from you. It moves independently, precisely, and without noise. And that is why your silence is not weakness. It is strength under authority. Your silence carries weight because it is disciplined. You learned not to explain yourself to those who never intended to understand. You learned that not every battle is meant to be fought aloud, and not every offense deserves a response. While others confuse silence with defeat, heaven recognizes it as restraint. Power does not always roar. Sometimes it watches, sometimes it waits, and sometimes it allows consequences to unfold without interference. That is where God's justice operates best, when you step back and refuse to contaminate divine correction with human emotion. Make no mistake, God keeps score. Not in the petty sense people imagine, but in the exact, unwavering way only truth can be recorded. Every dismissal, every manipulation, every careless word spoken against what He anointed did not vanish into the air. While you moved forward, unseen consequences began to surface in the lives of those who mishandled you. Opportunities stalled, peace eroded, rest became elusive, not because you wished harm, but because alignment was broken. When people dishonor what God sends, disorder follows naturally. Justice does not rush, but it never forgets. Your presence, much like fire, has always forced a choice. Fire can warm or it can burn, depending on how it is approached. Those who came near you with humility grew, they healed, they became clearer, steadier, stronger. But those who came carelessly, looking to consume without honoring the source, felt scorched. Fire reveals intent. It doesn't change its nature to accommodate recklessness. And neither do you. You didn't become dangerous. You became defined. This is why Scripture declares with certainty, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper." Isaiah 54:17. Not because weapons won't be formed, they will, but because they lack authorization. Their efforts collapse under their own weight. Their schemes dissolve before completion. What looks like intimidation to the untrained eye is actually spiritual clarity. Your presence confronts falsehood without accusation. It exposes instability without saying a word. And that level of clarity unsettles those who survive on confusion and control. So if they seem cautious now, if they lower their voices or measure their steps around you, understand this: they are not afraid of you. They are aware of the cost of mishandling what God protects. And that awareness is not your doing. It is justice, unfolding exactly as it should. There comes a moment in every chosen life when this truth becomes unavoidable. Access to you was never a right. It was entrusted. The people who crossed your path did not find you by accident, and you were not placed in their lives as a convenience or a lucky break. Your presence was an assignment, carefully positioned, intentionally timed, and divinely measured. What you carried into their world was not just companionship or support, but clarity, covering, and alignment. And like anything sacred, it required discernment to handle. That is why losing you was never just about losing a person. It was about losing access to peace that stabilized them, access to wisdom that steadied their chaos, access to an energy that quietly shielded them from consequences they never even knew were forming. When that access was mishandled, it was withdrawn. Not in anger, not in drama, but in order. Because sacred things are not taken back loudly. They are removed deliberately. And once access is gone, the absence speaks louder than your presence ever could. You became who you are not because you avoided battle, but because you survived it without letting it harden you. You are peace, refined by war, calm forged through loss, steadiness built in seasons where nothing around you was stable. That kind of peace cannot be exploited for long. People who thrive on manipulation grow uncomfortable around someone who cannot be provoked, controlled, or guilted into shrinking. Your stillness disrupts their strategies. Your clarity exposes their intentions. And that is why some tried to label you distant when, in truth, you simply became discerning. Scripture offers a clear boundary for moments like this. Do not give what is holy to the dogs, nor cast your pearls before swine. Matthew 7-6. This is not a statement of contempt. It is a principle of stewardship. What is valuable must be protected, not endlessly explained. What is sacred must be honored, not accessed without responsibility. You did not become selective out of pride. You became selective out of wisdom. As you outgrew manipulation, entitlement could no longer survive in your presence. People who once felt entitled to your time, your energy, your patience, began to feel the shift. Not because you changed into someone cold, but because you changed into someone clear. You stopped negotiating your worth. You stopped overgiving to prove your heart. And in doing so, you reclaimed authority over your own access. Those meant to walk with you adjusted. Those who only wanted what you carried fell away. And that separation was not loss. It was alignment. Finally restored. Your presence has never been a decoration meant to flatter someone's life. It is a mirror. And mirrors do not exist to be admired. They exist to reveal. When you step into a space, people are not confronted by your words or your actions first. They are confronted by themselves. by what they've healed and what they've avoided, by what is solid within them and what is built on pretense. That is why being around you feels different. You were never meant to be a trophy displayed for someone's ego. You were meant to be truth standing quietly in the room. Think of it this way. Your presence is like a rare artifact placed into someone's care. Not something common, not easily replaced, not meant to be handled casually. A rare artifact carries history, intention, and value that cannot be recreated. It demands respect, patience, and understanding. Those who recognize its worth approach it carefully, knowing mishandling it could cause irreversible damage. But others, unaware of its significance or unwilling to honor it, treat it as ordinary. And when the damage becomes visible, they are shocked by the cost. What they never understood is that the cost was always there. It was just ignored. Mishandling what is sacred always costs more than expected. Not immediately, not always visibly, but inevitably. People assume they can overstep, take advantage, or disregard boundaries without consequence. They believe access equals ownership, but when sacred things are treated as common, alignment breaks, protection lifts, favor shifts, and what once flowed easily begins to resist them. This is not punishment, it is principle. Sacred order corrects itself when dishonor is introduced. That is why you no longer chase clarity for those committed to misunderstanding you. You no longer explain yourself to people who benefit from confusion. You no longer shrink your presence to make others comfortable in their dysfunction. That season required too much from you and gave too little in return. Now, your stillness draws the line. Your boundaries speak. Your absence teaches lessons your words never could. You didn't become distant. You became anchored. And in that anchoring, something remarkable happened. You stopped trying to convince people of your worth and started recognizing who was meant to walk with you. Those aligned with truth don't feel threatened by mirrors. They welcome them. They don't demand access. They honor it. They don't compete with your light. They grow alongside it. These are the ones who remain, not because you held on tightly, but because alignment held you both steady. Everyone else fades not as a loss, but as confirmation that the test has already done its work. There is a kind of power that does not announce itself, and you carry it naturally. It is the power of sacred silence. Not the silence of avoidance or fear, but the silence of depth. What many mistake for emptiness is actually pressure-focused, contained, and intentional. Like the calm before a storm, or the stillness beneath deep waters, your silence holds force. It does not rush to explain itself because it doesn't need validation. It waits, and in that waiting, it reshapes everything around it. That is why atmospheres shift when you arrive. You don't have to speak for the room to feel it. Conversations pause, tones adjust, and postures change. Some become more mindful, others grow uneasy. The space itself responds because alignment has entered it. You don't compete for attention, yet attention recalibrates around you. This isn't about dominance, it's resonance. Truth recognizes truth, and when something real enters a space built on performance, the contrast becomes undeniable. Scripture captures this kind of authority with quiet precision. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Exodus 14. Stillness here is not passivity. It is trust in divine order. It is knowing when movement would interfere with what God is already handling. Your stillness is not retreat, it is positioning. While others scramble to defend their image, you rest in alignment, and alignment does what arguments never could. People often label this presence as intimidating because they lack language for spiritual clarity. But you are not intimidating. You are aligned. Alignment exposes disorder without confrontation. It challenges instability simply by existing. When someone's sense of self is built on noise, attention, or control, your grounded silence feels disruptive. Not because you are threatening, but because you cannot be manipulated into reacting. And that kind of steadiness unsettles those who depend on chaos to feel powerful. This is why it's important to understand who you truly are in the room. You are not the spotlight chasing applause or recognition. You are the light. The spotlight seeks attention. The light reveals. The spotlight moves with approval. The light remains, regardless of who is watching. You don't perform truth, you embody it. And embodiment carries a weight that performance never will. So if your silence makes others uncomfortable, let it. You were never meant to dilute your presence to soothe insecurity. Your role is not to be loud enough to be noticed, but clear enough to be felt. And clarity, especially when it arrives without noise, always leaves an impression that cannot be ignored. What you are carrying did not begin with you, and that is why it feels heavier than most people expect. Long before your voice was heard, before your choices were made, before your story took shape in the visible world, your life was already marked. Scripture speaks directly to this truth. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. Jeremiah 1-5. Set apart does not mean elevated above others. It means assigned. It means designed with intention that reaches further back than memory and further forward than you can yet see. You carry answered prayers that never had your name on them. Prayers whispered by ancestors who longed for freedom but never saw it. Cries for healing that stalled in generations before yours. Attempts to break cycles that failed because the time was not yet right. Their faith, their endurance, and even their unfinished battles became part of your inheritance. You are not stronger by accident. You are standing on spiritual groundwork laid by those who hoped someone would finish what they started. And now, through you, the answer arrived. Imagine a vault sealed for generations. Many tried to open it. Some used force. Others tried imitation, shortcuts, or compromise. But the vault was not meant to open by pressure from the outside. It was designed to respond to a specific key. And you arrived with that key already built into your spirit. Not learned, not borrowed, not copied. It was encoded into you. That is why doors respond to you differently. Why patterns shift when you show up. Why resistance appears before you even speak. You are not triggering opposition. You are activating design. Your existence ends cycles because you were built for closure. What repeated endlessly before you now finds its boundary. Addiction, silence, fear, self-betrayal, limitation, things that once felt inevitable begin to lose their authority around you. This does not make your path easy. Cycle breakers are rarely celebrated while the work is happening, but they are always felt, deeply, spiritually, irreversibly, and this is where people misunderstand you most. What they call arrogance is actually spiritual gravity. Gravity does not announce itself, yet everything adjusts around it. You are not trying to be important. You are simply aligned with what you were sent to carry. That alignment pulls truth to the surface, draws growth where there is humility, and exposes resistance where there is pride. You didn't choose this weight to feel superior. You carry it because history demanded resolution, and heaven trusted you to deliver it. The kind of light you carry was never meant to attack anyone. It was meant to illuminate. And illumination does not shout, accuse, or chase. It simply turns on. When light enters a space that has been kept dim for a long time, what was hidden becomes visible. That is why your presence feels confronting to some, even though you never intended confrontation. You are not stirring chaos. You are exposing what was already there. Think of a room sealed for years. Its windows covered, dust settled thick on every surface. In the darkness, the dust is ignored. It feels harmless, even invisible. But the moment sunlight breaks through, every particle dances in the air. The dust didn't suddenly appear. It was always there. The light simply made it undeniable. That is what happens when you arrive. Your energy throws open a window, and suddenly people can't avoid what they've been avoiding within themselves. Scripture captures this reality with quiet certainty. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. John 1-5. Darkness does not defeat light by fighting it. Darkness only resists by denying it. And when denial no longer works, resentment takes its place. People do not resent the light itself. They resent the mirror the light creates. They resent being seen without preparation, without performance, without excuses. That is why some people label you as too much or hard to be around. What they are really saying is that your presence removes their ability to pretend. You don't judge them. You don't call them out. You simply exist in a way that demands honesty. And honesty is uncomfortable for anyone still negotiating with their shadows. Many admire your glow. They are drawn to your peace, your confidence, your steadiness. But admiration often turns to frustration when they realize your glow comes with gravity. They want the light without the responsibility it carries. They want the calm without the discipline that created it. They want the crown without understanding the cost it required. What they don't see are the nights of breaking, the seasons of pruning, the isolation that refined your discernment. Your crown was not handed to you. It was earned through endurance, surrender, and growth in silence. And that is why it cannot be borrowed, replicated, or worn lightly. Light like yours isn't decorative, it is directional. It shows where healing must happen and where alignment is missing. And while some will turn away from it, others will finally see clearly because of it. Either way, the light remains faithful to its purpose. It does not dim itself to make darkness comfortable. What gives your strength its weight is not how it looks now, but how it was formed. You were not assembled in comfort or shaped by convenience. You were forged, and forging always begins with pressure before clarity. Long before you understood why certain seasons felt unbearable, you were being compressed, stripped of illusions, and pressed beyond what seemed reasonable. At the time, it felt like breaking. In truth, it was shaping. Crushing always comes before refinement, and refinement always precedes authority. There were moments when answers were withheld, when progress slowed, when support disappeared without explanation. Those seasons were not punishment. They were preparation. Every layer that couldn't survive the pressure fell away. Every false identity, every borrowed confidence, every need for approval was tested and removed. What remained was something real, something unshakable. Clarity does not come from ease. It comes from endurance. And the clarity you carry now was paid for in nights no one witnessed and battles no one applauded. Scripture speaks directly to this cost when it says, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross daily and follow me." Luke 9:23. This is not a call to suffering for its own sake. It is an invitation into transformation. The cross represents surrender, not defeat. It represents the willingness to release comfort in exchange for purpose. You accepted that exchange, even when you didn't fully understand it. And that decision marked you. That is why your authority does not depend on recognition. It comes from survival. You do not speak from theory. You speak from experience. Your calm is credible because it has been tested. Your wisdom is trusted because it has been earned. You don't need to convince people of your strength. They feel it. Applause fades. Survival remains. And the kind of authority built through endurance cannot be dismissed by opinions. This is also why what you carry cannot be copied. Forged light cannot be manufactured. It cannot be imitated through performance, aesthetics, or borrowed language. Others may attempt to mimic the way you move, speak, or lead, but they cannot replicate the process that shaped you. They did not walk through your fire. They did not pay the price you paid. And without that cost, there is no substance behind the shine. So when comparisons arise, let them fall away. You were never in competition. You were in formation. And now that formation speaks for itself. Your strength is not loud, but it is undeniable. It carries the weight of someone who was tested, refined, and still chose alignment. That is the kind of power that lasts. There is a truth many never realize until it is too late. Sometimes the very thing they prayed for arrives, and they don't recognize it. You were not an interruption in their life. You were an answer. Yet answers from God rarely arrive wrapped in ease or affirmation. They arrive carrying responsibility, and responsibility requires maturity to receive. That is why sacred blessings are so often misunderstood. Scripture reveals this pattern plainly. He came to his own, and his own did not receive him. John 1:11. Familiarity breeds blindness. People imagine blessings will come in ways that flatter them, agree with them, or demand nothing in return. But real blessings come to elevate, to correct, to align. You came into their lives steady, grounded, truthful. You didn't rescue them from discomfort. You invited them to grow beyond it. And for those still attached to convenience, that invitation felt threatening. Blessings do not exist to make life easier. They exist to make life truer. That is why being connected to you required accountability. Your presence didn't just soothe, it stirred. It awakened questions they weren't ready to answer and exposed habits they weren't willing to release. They wanted the relief without the responsibility, the peace without the process, the result without the restructuring. And when they realized that being close to you demanded integrity, they hesitated. Losing you was not simply losing a relationship or a connection, it meant losing alignment. Alignment with clarity, alignment with peace, alignment with a rhythm that brought order where chaos once thrived. While you were present, things flowed. Decisions made sense. The noise quieted. When access to you was removed, confusion returned. Not as punishment, but as consequence. Alignment cannot remain where it is no longer honored. And then came the silence. Not a dramatic exit, not confrontation, just distance. And that silence was not cruelty, it was revelation. In the absence of your presence, the contrast became clear. What you carried could no longer be taken for granted. Silence has a way of teaching what words never could. It forces reflection. It exposes dependence. It reveals whether someone valued the gift or merely enjoyed the benefits. You did not leave to hurt them. You withdrew to preserve what was sacred. And in doing so, the truth surfaced. Some people don't reject the blessing because it isn't good. They reject it because it asks too much of who they are unwilling to become. Your silence simply allowed that truth to speak for itself. There comes a moment in the journey of every chosen life when the need for approval quietly dissolves. Not because rejection stopped hurting, but because alignment began speaking louder than opinion. You reached a place where validation was no longer something you chased, negotiated, or waited for. It was replaced by something steadier and far more powerful: divine alignment. When you are aligned, you no longer ask for permission to be who you were sent to be. You simply move, and the path adjusts. Scripture affirms this reversal of perspective with precision. The stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. Psalm 118:22. Rejection did not disqualify you. It positioned you. The very places where you were overlooked became the foundation for what now stands. People dismissed you because they evaluated you through limited vision. Heaven never made that mistake. Heaven saw the structure you were meant to support long before anyone else noticed your weight. That is why protection, timing, and discernment began to align in your life without explanation. Doors opened that logic could not justify. Attacks dissolved before they reached you. Intuition sharpened at critical moments, pulling you away from danger or deception just in time. These were not coincidences, they were confirmations. You were being guided, covered, and positioned by a system far greater than public opinion. While others debated your worth, Heaven was orchestrating your next step. When you live from that place, something fundamental shifts. You stop fighting for seats at tables that cannot sustain you. You stop arguing with gossip, defending your character, or over-explaining your intentions. You understand that what is divinely approved does not need human consensus to function. You are no longer dependent on external validation because you carry an internal altar, an altar built in solitude, maintained through prayer, obedience, and quiet surrender. This altar is where your strength is renewed, your direction clarified, and your peace protected. It is not visible to everyone, but its effects are unmistakable. From it flows discernment that keeps you grounded, humility that keeps you teachable, and confidence that does not need to perform. You do not draw power from attention. You draw it from alignment. And that is why you move differently now. Calm where others panic, focused where others scatter, unshaken where others demand proof. Heaven already signed off on you. What remains is not to convince the world, but to continue walking in agreement with what has already been declared. As you step deeper into alignment, another truth becomes undeniable. You are covered, not combative. You are not surviving because you fight harder than everyone else. You are standing because you are protected. There is a difference. Combat requires constant effort, constant defense, constant reaction. Covering allows you to move forward without being consumed by every threat. And that covering did not come from strategy. It came from assignment. Scripture speaks to this assurance without hesitation. No one will be able to stand against you all the days of your life. As I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will never leave you nor forsake you. Joshua 1-5. This promise was never about ease. It was about presence. Divine presence shifts the odds before the battle even forms. That is why what was meant to stop you keeps missing its mark. Not because you outmaneuvered it, but because it was never authorized to reach you. This is where divine justice separates itself from retaliation. Retaliation is reactive. It needs offense to feel justified. Divine justice is ordered. It does not rush, explain, or posture. It simply responds according to truth. You learned this when you stopped clapping back, stopped defending yourself, stopped trying to clear your name. You realize something profound. The moment you retaliate, you lower yourself into a battlefield that was never yours to fight. Justice works best when you stay in alignment and let consequences unfold without your interference. That is because your life is sacred territory. Not in the sense of isolation or superiority, but in purpose. When God marks something as His, it comes with boundaries others cannot cross without consequence. Sacred territory does not need to threaten intruders. It simply enforces order. When people overstep with you, lying, manipulating, disrespecting, or attempting to drain what they did not build, they are not just crossing personal boundaries. They are trespassing against divine instruction, and trespass always activates correction. This is why you don't need to posture as powerful. You are a vessel of purpose. Purpose carries authority without aggression. You move differently because you understand that your role is not to destroy enemies, but to remain positioned while justice handles what pride cannot. Every step you take in obedience strengthens the covering around you. Every time you choose restraint over reaction, you reinforce it. So let them misunderstand your calm. Let them mistake your lack of retaliation for weakness. You know better now. You are not passive. You are protected. And when protection stands watch, justice does not need your help to arrive exactly on time. Revelation changes you, but it also entrusts you. Once your eyes are opened, you are no longer only protected by what you know, you are responsible for how you carry it. This is where stewardship begins. Being set apart was never meant to turn you hardened or distant from humanity. Separation was about clarity, not coldness. You were refined so that you could remain open without being careless, strong without being sharp, discerning without becoming cynical. Set apart does not mean closed off. It means calibrated. Your heart is still soft, but your access is selective. You learn that love without wisdom leads to depletion, and wisdom without love leads to isolation. Stewardship holds both in balance. You no longer confuse compassion with overexposure. You no longer mistake empathy for obligation. Boundaries, when formed with clean hearts, do not punish others, they protect what has been entrusted to you. This is why precision now matters more than reaction. Precision over bitterness became a survival skill and then a discipline. Bitterness blurs judgment. It speaks too quickly, cuts too broadly, and damages what it was meant to defend. Precision, on the other hand, allows you to respond without poisoning your own spirit. You choose your words carefully. You choose your battles sparingly. You understand that not every offense deserves your energy, and not every misunderstanding requires correction. That restraint is not weakness, it is mastery. Power that is not stewarded becomes destructive, even when it originates from truth. You recognize this when you felt the temptation to harden after betrayal, to weaponize your discernment, or to withdraw into emotional distance. But you chose another path. You chose to remain aligned, to let clarity guide you without letting pain define you. That choice preserved your authority. This is also where living truth replaces performing it. You no longer feel the need to prove how healed, spiritual, or enlightened you are. Your life speaks quietly and consistently. Integrity has replaced image. Consistency has replaced intensity. You do not preach what you do not practice, and you do not perform strength for an audience. You embody it in private, where it matters most. Stewardship means understanding that what you carry can either heal or harm, depending on how you hold it. And you have learned to hold it with humility, restraint, and reverence. That is why your presence remains powerful without becoming heavy, and your influence continues to expand without losing its purity. Before anything else, allow yourself to enter a moment of stillness, not silence filled with distraction, but the kind of stillness that settles the soul and sharpens awareness. Let the striving quiet down. Let the need to explain, defend, or anticipate fall away. In this stillness, alignment becomes audible. This is where truth settles back into its rightful place, not as noise, but as knowing. From that place, receive this covering prayer. May your identity remain rooted, not in what you've endured, but in who you were called to be. May protection surround you not only from external harm, but from internal compromise. May discernment remain sharp, guiding your steps away from false familiarity and toward genuine connection. May peace guard your heart without dulling your purpose, and may clarity continue to rise where confusion once lived. As alignment deepens, there is also a necessary release. Not every connection was meant to survive your growth. Not every voice was authorized to walk with you into this next season. What once felt familiar but now feels heavy is being lifted. What drained you without honoring you is losing access. This is not loss. It is order being restored. Let false connections dissolve without guilt. What is divinely removed makes room for what is divinely aligned. Now comes the declaration, not whispered, not forced, but steady and grounded. You are no longer negotiating your worth. You are no longer shrinking to maintain proximity. You are walking forward in clarity, timing, and obedience. If this resonates with your spirit, declare it openly and without hesitation. I walk in divine alignment. Let it be a marker, not just a comment, but a commitment. This journey was never meant to be walked alone. Community strengthens discernment and sharpens purpose. Stay connected, subscribe, remain present, and grow alongside others who understand the weight and responsibility of this path. This is not about numbers, it is about alignment. And as you step forward, receive this final commissioning. Never apologize for the weight you carry. It was measured, assigned, and entrusted to you on purpose. Walk gently, but firmly. Speak truthfully, but wisely. You were not made lighter to be accepted, you were made strong to be faithful. Go forward, aligned, covered, and unashamed.